This is the story of Alan Godfrey, a British police officer in the West Yorkshire Metropolitan Police Force. Alan has been commended twice for his investigative work in cases of sudden and mysterious deaths. He is married and a proud father of 2 children. Alan is proud to be a policeman and proud of his accomplishments. His story began over 30 years ago when Alan was looking for 3 men suspected of brutally assaulting someone the night before.
Headquarters, this is PC Godfrey. I've located the 3 suspects outside a pub. It's called the Carpenter Arms. I'm going to take them into custody. Send backup.
I was kicked in the groin area, as a result of which later on I did lose a testicle.
The police surgeon explained that Alan would require a long period of recuperation.
You're going to need a lot of rest.
He was both physically and psychologically devastated and was told he would no longer be able to have a normal sex life.
I was also told I would I've definitely been sterile for the rest of my life. I would not be able to father children again.
Alan finally returned to active duty. Seemingly unrelated, he was called to the scene of a mysterious death 3 years after his beating.
Looks like we got a murder on our hands.
Right, I'll call it in.
What was strange about the guy was he was wearing a top coat, but he wasn't wearing a shirt. He was wearing a string vest, you know. His jacket had been fastened unevenly at the top here. His trousers and the fly was undone on the trousers. His shoes appeared that he hadn't put them on himself. They hadn't been tied properly.
According to the owner of the coal yard, the body was not there at 10 a.m. An off-duty officer surveyed the site at 1:30 p.m. and found nothing unusual. Later that afternoon, the body was discovered, and subsequent tests proved he had been dead for at least 8 hours. So the question remained, where had he died? And how did he get to the top of the coal pile?
This guy died of shock. Where the hell are these burn marks from?
There was a strange substance on the back of the dead man's neck, which the forensic pathologist proceeded to analyze.
The guy, although he died of a heart attack, the heart attack had been brought on by something that really, really terrified him.
The victim was identified as Adamski.
The coroner wanted the police to ascertain why this guy had turned up some 30 or 40 miles from his home, where he'd been for 6 days, where the burn marks had come from. More importantly, what was the substance that had been applied to the guy's wound at the back of the neck, because the substance could not be identified as anything known on Earth.
The police were further baffled. There were no footprints leading to where the body was found.
It's really important to remember this. The fact that the guy climbed a stack of coal, well, supposedly climbed a stack of coal, if he had got there under normal power, who was suffering from a heart condition in inclement weather as it was, and to lie there on the top and just look at the sky and die is ridiculous.
With the Adamski death still nagging at him, Alan encountered something even more extraordinary.
I was on patrol in my police car, and we'd been getting strange, unusual calls from members of the public about a herd of cows that were kept appearing and disappearing on a local council estate. We went up there and had a look, and there was nothing. You know, there's no trace of these cows. There was no sign of them. Cows leave trademarks. We all know this. So it was rather unusual that these cows couldn't be found.
Headquarters, this is PC Alan Godfrey. I'm going up to Council Estate to check on the cows. Over.
As I was approaching the council estate, I was going to come off the main road when I saw in front of me a large object that was blocking the road up ahead. I put my warning flashing lights on, the blue flashing lights on. My first reaction was that it was a double-decker bus that had gone skidded sideways, or whatever. There was something blocking the road. So I instinctively drove towards it. As I was approaching the object, it was a sight that really I wasn't expecting to see, there was an object that was hovering. It wasn't actually on the ground, it was actually hovering over the ground, about 5 feet. This in itself, is a bit strange to say the least.
Hello. Headquarters, this is PC Alan Godfrey. I need assistance.
I tried the car radio, it wouldn't work. I tried my personal radio.
This is PC Alan Godfrey.
Nobody would answer me on the radio. It was completely dead. I've got it hovering in front of me about 25 yards is an object that really one only expects to see in such films as Close Encounters of a Third Kind, E.T. and things like this. I mean, this was totally unbelievable. It just didn't register with any of the training I've been given as a police officer. It became obvious to me that what I was looking at was a UFO. There was no emittance of noise from it, and there was certainly no heat coming from it. The trees that was lining the road were shaking violently, so whatever it was, there was a force coming from it. Although at that time, while I was sat in the police car, I couldn't feel any vibration in the police car, but there was no way I was going to get out. I wasn't going to get out of the police car. I felt very secure in there. And then a very strange thing occurred. Suddenly, there was a jump in time. After I'd done the drawing, or my last conscious memory was of doing the drawing, I suddenly found myself another 20 or 30 yards up the road, driving the police car, and the object had gone.
Alan realized that 20 minutes had passed, and he couldn't remember what happened. He turned the car around and went back to where he had seen the UFO.
I was a bit gobsmacked at this. It had been raining all night, so the road surface should really have been absolutely wet through. But where this object had been, the road surface was whirlpool dry.
Alan drove back to the town center to get two of his colleagues. The three of them returned to the location of the sighting.
So we went into the adjoining park, and the only way you can get into the park is over the bridge and through a locked gate, which is obviously it's open during the day, but during the hours of darkness, the gate's locked. So nothing can get into the park. We got in. We unlocked the gate because we have the keys to get into the park for obvious reasons.
What they had discovered was a herd of cows that had mysteriously appeared in the center of the field.
This is the herd of cows I've been looking for all night. We've been running around, and here they are.
How'd these cows get in here? There's no trail.
Now, this is rather strange, and this starts blowing your mind here, because I just seen something a UFO, that I found absolutely, totally unbelievable, and I wasn't expecting to see something like that. And another strange occurrence, the cows, How did the cows get there? The only way they could have got there is somebody had gone plonk and dropped them there.
Although Alan's fellow officers did not take the incident seriously, an inspector reminded him it was official procedure to report the incident to divisional headquarters.
The object was reported by 3 other police officers 12 miles from here, and 2 more in Lancashire County.
The teasing stopped. For the next 12 months, everything went back to normal.
Then, an investigative reporter realized that the PC Alan Godfrey of the Adamski case was the PC Alan Godfrey of the UFO case.
The reporter suggested that Adamski was the victim of an alien abduction. The story hit the front page of a national newspaper, with Alan as the link between the 2 mysterious incidents. The spotlight was on Alan, and he and his family and his superior officers were not at all thrilled. Whenever Alan testified in court, his credibility was ridiculed because of his UFO encounter. His superiors attempted to humiliate him and force him to resign from the force. They even took his police car from him and replaced it with a bicycle. Meanwhile, a friend of Alan's who had also experienced a UFO sighting convinced him to undergo hypnotic regression. The hope was to discover what had occurred during the missing 20 minutes.
What does Joseph say?
Do you remember the night I tried to wake you up and couldn't?
What night, love?
That night I heard that same sound over our bed. I tried to wake Alan up, but he was in such a deep sleep I couldn't wake him. Finally, the noise went away. The next morning, Alan and I made love for the first time since he was beaten up. And then I became pregnant.
Well, all I want to know is how did my wife get pregnant if I'm unable to father children? I mean, maybe she's been fooling around, huh?
I don't know how it happened, Alan, but your condition has completely been reversed. This test shows you're fertile. Back to normal.
While many questions were raised, few were answered. The Adamski death remains unsolved. Alan Godfrey is still unable to consciously remember the missing 20 minutes. Although Alan no longer serves in the police force, he believes that the visitors served some form of positive function in his life. He is extremely grateful to have recovered from his beating and to have had another child.